Okay, hello, good evening, everyone. So I'm Miss Prasana. I'll be conducting today's session. Today's session will be on grammar element, specifically tenses. So watch all the watch the video throughout so that you can have better understandings on tenses. But just in case if you missed this video, you can always get back to Dynam Book Malaysia page on YouTube and watch it again for revision purposes, but do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, yeah? So without further ado, we'll start with our lesson today. Okay, so today's class will be on English tenses, as I mentioned earlier. Let me give you a short introduction about myself. I'm Miss Prasana. Currently, I'm teaching in SK Convent Kajang. So this is my email address. You can always contact me through this email address if you have any further inquiries about my presentations or anything related to English. Yeah. So, at the end of today's session, we will be able to use tenses correctly. We will be able to express action that has taken place in the present, past, and future. We will be able to answer questions on tenses in virtual learning platforms. Check live, hold on. Check whether we are on live. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll repeat again on our objective for today's lesson. At the end of today's session, we will be able to use tenses correctly. We will be able to express action that had taken place in the present, past, and future. And finally, we will be able to answer questions on tenses in virtual learning platforms. Okay, we will first talk about type of tenses. So the first one would be present, followed by past, and the third one is future. But what we have to know is these are only the main branches of tenses, but we have some sub-branches of tenses in which we will be looking at it now. For present tense, the first one would be present simple tense. So I'll give you an example of a sentence. I eat pizza for lunch. If you could see, the verb eat is in present simple form. The next one will be present perfect tenses. This example of sentence would be, I have eaten pizza for lunch. The next one will be present continuous tense. I am eating pizza for lunch. The last one for present tense would be present perfect continuous. The example of sentence is, I have been eating pizza for lunch. Next, we will look into past tense. The first one would be simple past. The example sentence would be, I ate pizza for lunch. Past perfect. The example would be, I had eaten pizza for lunch. The next one would be past continuous tense. I was eating pizza for lunch. The final one would be past perfect continuous. I had been eating pizza for lunch. The last one would be future tenses. The first one will be simple future. The example of sentence would be, I will eat pizza for lunch. Next would be future perfect. This example would be like, I will have eaten pizza for lunch. The next one will be future continuous. The example, I will be eating pizza for lunch. Future perfect continuous would be the last type of future tense. The example of sentence would be, I will have been eating pizza for lunch. So if you look over here, I have purposely picked up the same type of sentence for each tenses so that we can see the differences clearly. If you could see, the major differences is on the type of verbs used throughout all the three categories of tenses, and also all the verb to be that we have added on each sentences, and there's also some modal verbs added for future tenses. So I will explain to you in detail when we look into each of the sentence types specifically. So first of all, we have to understand that tenses are mainly used to describe an action based on the time period or the time frame in which the action takes place. So first of all, if an action is being conducted at a present moment, it will be under present tense. If something that has happened before, it will be past, or if something that we are forecasting, then it will be future. So let's look into present tense. Okay, present simple tense. This is the first branch of present tense, yeah? Okay, before we move further, you have to understand each types of tenses can be formed into three sentence types, so in which I will teach you one by one. Before that, simple tenses, present simple tenses can be divided into to be sentences and also verb sentences. So the first form of present simple tenses will be affirmative. Okay, what is affirmative? Affirmative is a basic sentence stating something very simple and clear. In another word, straight to the point. If you can see, the example I have prepared for you is, she is pretty, they are friendly. So in order to construct an affirmative present simple tense sentences, you have to have your subject first, followed by the to be verbs, which is am, is, or are. I'm pretty sure you remember when do we use am, is, and are, but I would like to just repeat once again. Am is used for the noun I, is for singulars, and are for plural. So if you can see, the subject here is singular, she. We use the verb to be is, and this is an adjective. So this is a simple present sentences. She is pretty. But when we are using a plural noun, the subject, the verb to be that we have to be using is are. So they are friendly. So what we have to remember is this. The subject could be anything, but what is important here is you have to be choosing the correct form of am, is, or are, which is the year verb to be. Okay, let's look at sentences for types of verbs here. I like strawberries. She likes strawberries. So for this type of sentences, we must have our subject followed by our verbs. When we are talking about verbs followed by a subject, we have to remember, be very selective in the verbs that we have chosen. We have to be choosing the correct verbs for our subject. If it's a singular subject, then it has to be a verb with an s, and if it's a plural subject, it has to be a verb without the s. Yeah, that's our very basic grammar items. So I'm just repeating it so that you don't make these mistakes again. Yeah. Okay. So next will be negative. Negative means when you are declining or saying no in a present simple sentences. So it will be subject plus am, is, or are plus not. She is not pretty. They are not friendly. You can see that we are just making those affirmative sentences into a negative sentences by adding the word not. So she is not pretty, they are not friendly. Let's look at the verbs. Subject, don't or doesn't plus verb. I don't like strawberries. She doesn't like strawberries. Okay, looking at this, one common mistake that most people do is one common mistake that people used to do is they misuse the word don't and doesn't. They mixed up with the subject. So you should be using don't for the for the nouns I, you, we, and they. And doesn't, you should use it for he, she, and it. Right? So I'm going to repeat myself. For doesn't, you use the you use the noun he, she, it. For don't, you use I, you, we, and they. So you can see here, I use the verb don't, and then like strawberries. I don't like strawberries. Like here is the verb, yeah. She doesn't like strawberries. The last form of present simple sentences is interrogative. Interrogative simply means asking questions. For that, we would be starting our sentence with am, is, or are plus the subject. Example, is she pretty? Are they friendly? If you see, I'm just using the affirmative form of sentences and changing it into interrogative so that you can actually understand better. So now let's look at the type of sentences using words. Do or does plus subject plus verb. Do you like strawberries? Does she like strawberries? So these are the basic present simple tenses. Okay, present simple tenses. So all that you have to remember is there are three forms: affirmative, negative, and interrogative. Affirmative means to just straight mentioning or going straight to the point in a sentence. Negative means to decline or saying no. And interrogative is on questioning, yeah. So next would be present continuous tense. There are also three forms, but first we will look into affirmative. For affirmative, you have to have your subject, am, is, or are, plus the verb that follows with ing. He is dancing. As simple as that. He is the subject, is the verb to be, and dance is the base word for verb. But when you are using it for present continuous tense, you have to change it to ing form. So it's dancing. So he is dancing. The next one, we are dancing. As you can see, those sentences are very short, clear, and precise. They are stating what one person can do. So he is dancing, we are dancing. All that you have to remember is when you're creating an affirmative present continuous tense sentences, the sentence should start with subject followed by a verb to be plus verb in the ing form. Next would be negative. Same thing, but the only difference is we will be having the negative word not. Subject and is are plus not plus verb in the ing form. He is not dancing. We are not dancing. So you can see those affirmative sentences are changed into negative by just adding the word not before the verb. The last one will be interrogative. So the sentence structure would start with verb to be am, is, or are plus the subject plus the verb in the ing form. The first sentence would be, is he dancing? Are we dancing? So that's basically questioning someone on what they are doing. Next would be present perfect tense. The same thing, all these types of tenses have three forms. So the first one will be affirmative. Let's look into the sentence structure. The subject plus have or has plus past participle. I have bought canvas before. She have bought canvas before. So you need your subject, have or has, plus your past participle. So in these sentences, the past participle is the word bought. If you remember, the base form, the simple tense form of bought is buy, but when it's past participle, it's brought. These are also called the irregular verbs. There's a lot. There are a lot of list of irregular verbs that you can actually Google and read it, because it's impossible for a teacher to teach you all the irregular verbs that can be found. Yeah. So I'm just gonna put it like that. It's past participle. How do you find what are those words in past participle forms? You have to Google for irregular verbs. Okay, so in this context, I have chosen the word buy in their past participle form bought. So I have bought canvas before. She has bought canvas before. So now we will look into the negative form of present perfect tense. The sentence structure would be subject plus have or has plus not plus past participle. I have not bought canvas before. She has not bought canvas before. So now let's look into the final type of sentences. It's interrogative. The sentence structure would be have or has plus subject plus past participle. Have you bought canvas before? Has she bought canvas before? So this is present perfect tenses. So this is it. So now let's look into the final type of uh, present tense, which is present perfect continuous tense. Okay, the first form would be affirmative. So now let's look at the sentence structure of an affirmative form of present perfect continuous tense. It has to be started off with subject plus has or has plus been plus past participle. He has been learning karate for 3 years. So you can read the sentences. Meanwhile, can you think of any sentences that okay, sorry. Okay. All right, now let's look at the negative form of present perfect continuous tense. It, it started out with subject, has or has, plus not, plus been, plus a past participle. So this example would be, he has not been learning karate for years. They have not been learning karate for years. The last start form would be interrogative, has or has, plus subject, plus been, plus past participle. Has he been learning karate for years? Have they been learning karate for years? So overall, we have finished present tenses. Now we will look into now let's just look into some of the keywords that indicates the sentence is in the present tense form. So those keywords are called the time expressions. So these are few examples that shows the sentence is in present tense form. This evening at 11 a.m. when, until, as soon as, twice a month, twice a month, every Tuesday, sometimes, just, already, yet, for, since, never, and ever. So if you look at these time expressions, all these times expression actually states if time frame when are the actions taking place. So this evening, you are very sure of the time when the action takes place. An example that I could give you is, I will be going jogging this evening. My exam starts at 11 a.m. I'll be going to the gym twice a month. Every Tuesday, my father goes to the market. Sometimes I sleep right after my tuition. Since independence, we have the freedom to voice out our opinion. So these are certain examples that I could think of, which in the simple tense form, right? So if you're having any troubles in identifying the form of a sentence, look for these keywords that indicates you the type of tenses used in that sentence. So without further ado, we will move into the next type of sentence, which is past tense. Okay, look at the word past. Past is a word that indicates an action that has taken place, has over, finished. Okay, so now let's look at the first one, past simple tense. Okay, for past simple tense, there are also the same three forms, and only for past simple tense we can actually divide the sentences that using verb to be and also just the verb. So the first one would be affirmative. So the sentence structure should actually start with subject plus was or were. So the example would be, she was hungry. They were hungry. So the other type of sentence would be subject plus verb in the past tense form. Yeah, I jogged yesterday. We jogged yesterday. The next form would be negative. The sentence structure would be subject plus was plus the sentence structure would be subject plus was or were plus not. So the example of sentence would be she was not hungry. So the only difference between affirmative and negative is the word not, which is being added after the verb to be was and were. They were not hungry. So the sentence structure for negative form would be subject plus did not plus verb. I did not jog yesterday. We did not jog yesterday. The word did have indicated that the action has taken place earlier. So the verb would be in the base form. Yeah. So I did not jog yesterday. We did not jog yesterday. The final form of past simple sentences will be interrogative. Now we will look into the sentence structure of interrogative past simple tense. It starts with was or were plus subject. Was she hungry? Were they hungry? So now let's look at the sentence form for verbs. Did plus the subject plus the verb. Did you jog yesterday? Did we jog yesterday? Okay, before I move further, I would like to remind you on something on the usage of was and were. We would be using was for singular nouns like he, she, and it, and while were, we'll be using it for we, you, we, and they. Now let's look at past continuous tense. The first form would be affirmative. The sentence structure would be subject plus was or were plus verb in the ing form. So now let's look at the first example. She was dancing gracefully. The subject here is she. Since she is a singular noun, we will be using was. And the verb in the ing form would be dancing. So she was dancing gracefully. They were dancing gracefully. So the next form would be negative. The sentence structure would be subject plus was or were plus not plus verb in the ing form. She was not dancing gracefully. They were not dancing gracefully. If you can see it, the only difference between affirmative and negative form of past continuous tenses is the usage of the word not before the verb ing. Interrogative, the sentence structure would be was or were plus subject plus verb ing. Was she dancing gracefully on the stage? Okay, actually I could see some of you responding on your live chat. Can you guess what would be the sentence structure for this sentence in interrogative form? They were not dancing gracefully. Okay, the sentence structure would be, were they dancing gracefully on the stage? So when we are looking at past continuous tense, we have to be sure that the verb that we are using should be in the ing form, and we should be very careful in choosing the verb to be work was or were. Okay, I could see Shivani Prabhakaran. I've answered my question correctly. Congratulations, girl. That's a very good attempt. Uh, Nancy Arul Jodi, you also, and also Wong Jing Han. Good attempt, thank you. So, okay, let me get back to this content. Past continuous tense. So, the only thing that you have to keep in mind is the type of verbs that you're using when you're using past continuous tenses in a sentence. Yeah, the verb has to be in the ing form. The next one would be past perfect tense. The first form of it would be affirmative. The sentence structure would be subject plus had plus past participle. She had cooked the chicken when they came home. They had finished the exam when the bell rang. If you can see, the word had has been used. Past participle cooked has also been used in the sentence. The negative form of past perfect tenses would be in a form, sorry, the form of the negative form of past perfect tenses would use this structure of sentence, which is subject plus had plus not plus past participle. The example of sentence would be, she had not cooked the chicken when they came home. The last one would be, they had not finished the exam when the bell rang. The interrogative form would be using the structure had plus subject plus past participle. This example of sentence would be, had she cooked the chicken when they came home? Had they finished the exam when the bell rang? The last type would be past perfect continuous tense. The first form would be affirmative. You'll be using the sentence structure subject plus had plus been plus verb in the ing form. They had been learning music. She had been singing in concert. So for past perfect continuous tense, you have to remember that we should be having the word been and also verb in the ing form. For negative, it's the same thing, but we will just add on the word not. So the sentence structure would be like subject plus had plus not plus verb in the ing form. So the example of sentence would be, they had not been learning music. She had not been singing in concerts. The final form of past perfect continuous tense would be interrogative. The sentence structure would be had plus subject plus been plus verb in the ing form. Here are the example of sentences. Had they been learning music? Had she been singing in concerts? So these are past perfect continuous tense. Now we will look into time expressions that indicates the form of tenses in the sentence. So these are the few examples. Yesterday, ago, last month, last week, last year, in the year 2020, when, while, constantly, at that time, in those days, all morning, 4 hours, always, already, and yet. So when you find all this kind of time expression in the sentences, it indicates that the sentence is right. It is wrote in a past tense form. The last one would be future tense. Future means something that might happen in a future, where you might also know the exact time when an action is going to take place, or on a different note, there are times that you know something would happen but you wouldn't know the exact time. So future tense, when we are talking about future tense, one thing that you have to keep in mind is there are an action there are some actions where you know the exact time when I'm sorry. Okay, future tense actually has two types. The first one would be when you know the exact time when the action is going to take place. The other one would be when you're uncertain about the time when the action is going to take place. Yeah. So now let's look at the first type, future simple tenses. The first form would be affirmative. The sentence structure would be subject plus will plus shall, sorry, subject plus will or shall plus verb. The example would be, I will score an A in English. He shall visit his parents soon. You must ask me, some might ask me, what is the difference between will and shall? Actually, there's no much difference between those words, but will is more commonly used by everyone compared to shall. Will is like slightly more familiar and informal compared to shall. So the next form would be negative. The sentence structure would be subject plus will plus shall. Sorry, subject plus will or shall plus not plus the verb. I will not score an A in English. He shall not visit his parents soon. The last type would be interrogative form. The sentence structure would be will or shall plus subject plus verb. Will you score an A in English? Shall he visit his parents soon? So for when we are talking about future simple tense, few things that you have to remember is you can actually use will or shall at any sentence starts, but just remember that will is more common and it's even familiar compared to shall. So the next type would be future continuous tense. The first form would be affirmative. The sentence structure would be subject plus will plus be plus verb in the ing form. I will be baking a cake next week. In this sentence, you can see that I've used the word be, verb in the ing form, which is baking, and I've also stated a time in the future, which is next week. He will be baking a cake next week. It's the same thing, just that I used two different types of nouns there. The next one would be negative. The sentence structure would be subject plus will plus not plus be plus verb in the ing form. This example would be, I will not be baking a cake next week. He will not be baking a cake he will not be baking a cake next week. The last form of future continuous tense would be interrogative, and the sentence structure would be will plus subject plus be plus verb in the ing form. The example would be, will you be baking a cake next week? The next example would be, will he be baking a cake next week? So when we are talking about future continuous tenses, you have to remember we have to be using be plus verb in the ing form. The next one would be future perfect tense. The first one will be affirmative, and the sentence structure is subject plus will plus have plus past participle. I will have taken the exam. They will have taken the exam. So the negative form would be subject plus will plus not plus have plus past participle. I will not have taken the exam. They will have not taken the exam. So the interrogative form would be will plus subject plus have plus past participle. Will you have taken the exam? Will they have taken the exam? So in future perfect tense, you have to remember that the type of verb used is in the form of past participle. I will just like to repeat myself. Past participles are verbs, the irregular verbs. There's a lot of irregular verbs that change its form when we are using it in a past or a future sentences. So in order to get the list of words, you can always Google for irregular verbs or past participle forms of verb. Yeah, then you can find yourself a list of words that falls into the category of irregular verb or past participles. One way that you can improve yourself is by reading a lot of books, storybooks, or anything that's in the English language, because all those things that I've mentioned can be gained only through lots of reading and lots of exercises. Yeah. So now we will look into future perfect continuous tense. The first form would be affirmative, and the sentence structure would be subject plus will plus have plus been plus verb in the ing form. I will have been eating vegetables for 3 months. The next one would be the negative form. The sentence structure would be subject plus will plus not plus have plus been plus verb in the ing form. The example of sentence would be I will not have been eating vegetables for 3 months. The final sentence structure would be interrogative, and the sentence structure would be will plus subject plus have plus been plus verb in the ing form. The example will be, will you have been eating vegetables for 3 months? So when you look into future perfect continuous tense, we in a sentence we'll be using been and also verb in the ing form. All that you have to remember is perfect continuous. When there's a word continuous in your tenses, the verb would always be in the ing form. Okay, now we will look into certain keywords or the hints that we can find in a sentence that indicates the tense where the sentence were written. So these are the keywords: tomorrow, soon, later, next week, in 2 weeks, in a month, next year, later, the day after tomorrow, next time at 5 p.m., in the future at this time tomorrow. So if you can see all the time expression words that I have mentioned here is something that will take place in the future. So we are predicting, we are forecasting something that might or might not happen in the future. So actually that's all from me on the content. Let us practice what we have learned so far. For that, you can always search for this. Excuse me. Yeah. Okay. You can always Google using this URL here for you to do the exercise that I've prepared on tenses. If you couldn't copy it now, it's okay. You can always get back to the video and check for the link. So that's all from me, Miss Prasana. Thank you. So my final advice would be stay home and stay safe. Okay, before I sign off, I would like to remind you there will be a next section next Monday at 2 p.m. So do share this information with your friends so that all of them can join and get some benefits from all these lessons, all the classes conducted by teachers, all right? So that's all from me. Thank you.